After a rough weekend in Cincinnati, a lot of fans are talking about the Atlanta Braves bullpen and who can you trust. I'll discuss that on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jacob Mastriani. You can follow me on Twitter at ShortstopBall. Also, check out my written work over at BravesToday.com, where they got everything you could ever need to know as a Braves fan. Make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. If you're new on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching there, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button to help support the show. Make sure, again, you're subscribed to Locked On Sports Atlanta, where you get the postcast with me and Grant McCauley. And I apologize to those who listen to the audio version of the postcast, as I made a mistake on Sunday's audio version of that postcast. So do forgive me for that. My mistake, won't happen again. But thank you so much for the support both here and on the postcast over on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Thanks so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Thanks to some of my everydayers out there. CWG Gaming, JL Will from Texas says he's a TBS baby. TD2456 and Craig Rogers. I also apologize because YouTube has changed up the way that some of these names come through. So if you let me know you're an everydayer, go ahead and let me know your name as well, because some of these usernames are kind of hard to read with the way YouTube is spitting them out these days. So all that out of the way, on today's episode, we'll recap Monday's game where Spencer Strider was his vintage dominant self and a big outing against the Twins, and the Braves get a 4-1 win. Kirby Yates gets the save. Discuss that, and that'll lead us into our bullpen conversation on this Taco Tuesday segment. Who can you trust in the Atlanta Braves bullpen? I'll give you my answers there and whether or not they need to go out and get another trustworthy arm. And then I'll set you up for Tuesday's game, which should be a great pitching matchup between Ryan and Bryce Elder. But let's jump into Monday's game. I mentioned a 4-1 win for the Atlanta Braves over the Minnesota Twins. And just first of all, a great job by the Atlanta Braves coming off a very emotional, stressful. You heard a lot of the Braves coaches and players talking about just how exhausting that series was in Cincinnati. And to be able to move past that, and you knew you didn't have a lot of arms available in the bullpen coming into this game, and to move past all that and come through and get a win, I think that says a lot about this Braves team. Now, it did take the offense a little while to get going in this one, but still, you could have very easily seen things kind of snowballing after that series in Cincinnati that they won, but it took a lot out of them. You had to use a lot of arms, but thankfully, they had Spencer Strider on the mound Monday night, and he was just about as good as we've seen him all year long. He had an 8-inning shutout performance, scoreless performance with 13 strikeouts against the Marlins earlier in the year. This may be the second best outing to that one. 7 innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, 1 earned run, a solo home run from Joey Gallo, and 10 strikeouts. This, again, was the Spencer Strider that we're used to seeing, following up or backing up, rather, that start he had in Philadelphia, where it looked like he was starting to get things back on track. This seemed like another step in the right direction. You even heard him talk about it post-game as well, that he feels like he's come out of this, and he knew he was struggling a lot, and he himself said, probably won't be the last time I go through a tough stretch, but he said he feels like he's figured it out and is in a good place. And eye test says that. The analytics say that. Everything says that right now with Spencer Strider and the way that he's throwing the baseball. You're seeing that velocity tick back up, which is huge. A 97.6 mile per hour average fastball velocity. That's up from where it's been on the season at 97. But again, even more than that, the average fastball velocity, as I said last time, it's been roughly about the same all year long, but still, we haven't seen him reach back and get 98, 99 consistently when he's needed it. And you saw it in this start. He touched 99.5 miles per hour, his highest velocity on the night. That makes a big difference. I tweeted out there's an at-bat where he was facing the catcher, Jeffers, for the Twins. He threw 99 right down the middle, and Jeffers squared it up pretty good, but he was a little late on it and flew out to right field. big difference between 96 down the middle and 99 down the middle. You can get away with that sometimes when you're throwing 98, 99 as opposed to 95, 96. That does make a difference in velocity for sure. So I think that's been big, but huge, first of all, to give the team some length. I mentioned it. The bullpen was just overworked on the weekend against Cincinnati. A lot of rough outings there. So you knew Iglesias wasn't available. Minter's not available. Nick Anderson's not available. Michael Tonkin's not available. Not many guys down there who were available on this night. So for Spencer Strider to give you 7 innings, only the second time this year he's completed 7 innings, that in and of itself was huge. And then to give the performance that he gave, which was just unreal when you look at the whiff rates, which again, I talked about this last week. We broke down Spencer Strider on our Stat of the Day Wednesday segment last week, and just how elite he is and how high above everyone else he is in the whiff department and the swing and miss department. 26 whiffs on the night, a 53% whiff rate. Over half of the time that they're swinging against a Spencer Strider pitch, they are missing. That is just, again, elite swing and miss stuff. And these numbers are unreal against the off-speed pitches. With Grant McCauley pointed this out on the postcast. If you haven't given that a listen, make sure you go back and do so. But he went to the off-speed a little bit more in this game. I don't know if that was by design. The Twins did throw a lot of lefties in their lineup, and he's going to just naturally throw more changeups when there are more lefties in the lineup, and he did that on this night. But 11 of 14 swings against his slider were whiffs. All 6 swings against his changeups were whiffs. If you were swinging at the off speed on Monday night, you were pretty much missing. Only 3 times did a batter swing at either a slider or a changeup and make contact. That is just insane. I don't know what else to say. I pointed out, all these swing and miss numbers on last Wednesday's episode. You want to go back and give that a listen, but we're seeing stuff I don't know that we've seen before. I mean, with the swing and miss stuff that he has, 42 whiffs plus called strikes on the night. That's a huge number. I always say anything around 30 is really good. He had 42. This was a great matchup for him. Look, I'm not going to ignore that. The Twins lead all of baseball in strikeouts. So I mentioned this on Monday's podcast. It was a good matchup for him going in, but still just the absolute dominance that he had in doing so. And the command was great. I tweeted this picture out as well. I put up a side-by-side image of the spray chart of his pitches back on June 8th in that Mets start and the start on Monday night. And you can clearly see the command is just so much better. All the fastballs are near the top of the zone. All the sliders are down and away to righties. All the changeups are either below the zone down or down and in from left-handed hitters. I mean, the command, again, we talked about the velocity, and that's part of it, but I've always said the biggest part of it is command. And I don't know if it's just a mechanical change that he made. I'm sure Spencer Strider knows, and I'm sure he's been working on it, and it looks like he's figured it out, whatever it is. But the command has been so much better. And, you mix in the command with the velocity more back up to 97, 98, 99, and these are the results that you're going to get. So very big outing for Spencer Strider, very encouraging going forward. Offense struggled early in this one. Again, I said this might be a tough matchup for the Braves. Sonny Gray is a guy that doesn't give up a lot of home runs. He hadn't given up a home run on the road at all this year. So that's what the Braves typically feast on, hitting the home runs, and Sonny Gray doesn't give up a lot. So I thought this could be a problem, especially if they didn't draw the walks, which really plagues Sonny Gray. So not all that surprising that the Braves struggled to score against him. 9 ground ball outs for Sonny Gray, just 2 fly ball outs. Again, getting a lot of things on the ground. Braves were able to scratch across a run against him early. Travis d'Arnaud with runners on the corner hit a ball just slow enough that Travis d'Arnaud was able to beat it out at first for the first run of the game for the Braves. And then Marcell Ozuna did a great job getting ahead at 3-1 against Sonny Gray in the 7th inning, dropped a barrel on the ball. A really good swing, shot it out to right center. Again, Ozuna, he's just been really impressive since the calendar turned to May with some of these swings. I mean, these are good swings. These are not just power hitter looking to pull and smash type swings. I mean, it's a 3-1 pitch. It's a fastball middle away, and he just drops the head out on it and takes it to right center field for a home run to give the Braves the lead. And then Ronald Acuna Jr., after Michael Harris gets on base, he had 3 hits on the night. Acuna gives the Braves some insurance with the 2-run homer. So that was great to see as well. The offense, 4 runs on 8 hits, 2 walks, just 7 strikeouts. Again, talked about it yesterday. Braves continue to strike out at a lower rate, under 10 strikeouts a game. That's typically what you're looking for. Would have loved some more walks. Like I said, I thought they were maybe a little too aggressive against Sonny Gray, a guy who can struggle with command and give out some free passes. Just over 4 with runners in scoring position. And I know that's a stat the Braves have struggled with all year long, but the Braves are in scoring position at home plate. And I think that's something we have to keep in mind with that. You don't want to just rely on the home run ball, but when they're as good at doing it as the Braves are, you can kind of get by with the issues with runners in scoring position. Still would love to see that pick up a little bit. Rough game for Ozzy at the plate in that 2 spot. I mentioned it. He had, a situation in the game, 1st and 3rd, 2 outs, went up there and took some really bad swings, some swings that you see from Ozzy when he's not going well. I talked about the fact he'd been hot, and so it made sense to move him in that 2-hole, but I also said you got to be cautious of when the cold streak comes for Ozzy, as it typically does. Again, I don't know who hits in that 2-hole. Maybe that's our discussion for the next Taco Tuesday, but and maybe it is Ozzy, and I'm not saying he's not going to snap out of this, but some really bad at-bats from him on Tuesday. I mentioned Michael Harris, 3 for 3. His average is now up to 260. I mean, Ozzy is hitting 262. Harris has almost caught him at this point. And then the bullpen, McHugh came in, gave up a couple of hits, probably wasn't his sharpest outing. Heller came in, got a fly ball out to get out of that jam. And then Yates came on to get the save. And I want to talk about this more in the next segment because we're really going to dive into the bullpen. But Kirby Yates has been a guy that's really stepped up here for them lately. But like I said, next, I want to dive into that bullpen on our Taco Tuesday segment and discuss who can you trust in that Braves bullpen right now. Which arms maybe do you not trust as much? Who do you feel uncomfortable about when they come into the game? We'll discuss that here next. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful, and it's not when you use Game Time, which is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They have great deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, so you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting all pumped up for the fun you're going to have at your next Braves game, just like I did at the last Braves game I went to when I jumped on Game Time at the last minute and got the lowest deals and the best seats there on Game Time. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. They got flash sales going on as well. So really good deals there. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You get images of your seats before you buy, a feature that I absolutely love. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Braves play the Twins again on Tuesday night at 7:20 p.m. Eastern, looking to pick up another series win in June. Catch every pitch of the Braves' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. Had our Minors Monday podcast yesterday. If you haven't given that a listen, make sure you go back and do so. We'll have our Stat of the Day Wednesday on tomorrow's episode, Through the League Thursday, and Mailbag Friday this week as well. So a lot of great content coming out on the podcast. But today is Tuesday, so it is our Talk O Tuesday segment. And today we're going to talk about who can you trust in the bullpen. I think most of the comments I got on Monday's podcast were about the bullpen, and a lot of you saying that this bullpen isn't good, it needs work, nobody out there that you trust, you feel nervous with whoever comes in, and I get that, and it's a discussion worth having, and I feel like it's a discussion that changes every couple of weeks. I feel like sometimes this bullpen looks like one of the best in baseball, sometimes it looks like it did in Cincinnati. One obvious thing is that when the starting pitching goes deep, everything else seems to do, better. The bullpen seems to go along with that. The Braves have the 12th most innings by the bullpen this year. They've had to lean on that bullpen a lot. You got a lot of young pitchers, starting pitchers in your rotation. With some of your veterans out, you haven't been always been getting that length from your starting pitching. So the Braves have had to use that bullpen a lot, Despite all that, and despite what you may think about this bullpen, the stats will tell you it's a top 10 bullpen. It's been a top 10 bullpen all year. They're 7th in bullpen ERA at 3.69. They're 5th in WHIP at 1.22, and they're 7th in xFIP at 3.91. So again, despite all the work they've had to go through, despite, what some of the stretches they go through, like they did this past weekend in Cincinnati, it's still been a top 10 bullpen overall. Now, I still think it's worth having the discussion, who can you trust? And one thing I want to point out is that I'm a fan. I think I make this abundantly clear on this podcast and in my discussions with you in the YouTube comments. I'm a fan. I'm not a media member. I watch this game. I watch this team with Braves colored glasses on, just like you do. And I think every fan feels nervous whenever those bullpen doors open. There aren't many relievers in the game who come into the game and you feel just completely at ease and relaxed in a close game, a 1-run, 2-run ball game. I think that's just a fan mentality. At least I know it is for me. It's just, you never know what you're going to get coming out of that bullpen, if the guy's going to have it that night or not. Most often than not, a bullpen pitcher does, but you're going to remember that one outing when they blew a save. You're going to remember, that one game where they just didn't have it. You're going to remember that game that Iglesias had in Oakland where he came in and walked the bases loaded and all of that. You're going to remember those games more than you are, again, the majority of their outings where they're going to have scoreless appearances. It's just part of being a fan. And I'll say that's part of it, is that just, when there's a tight game and those bullpen doors open, you still wonder, okay, you're a bloop and a blast from this game getting, going the other way. And that's just, I think, the feeling of most fans. Again, I saw most of your comments saying, is there anybody you feel comfortable with? Does anybody else feel nervous whenever Iglesias comes in? I think that's most teams. There's not many Mariano Riveras. There's not many Edwin Diaz from last year for the Mets, where it just, they come in and the game's over and you feel confident that the game's over. There's not that many pitchers, relief pitchers like that in baseball, in my opinion. And maybe I'm wrong. You can let me know in the comments section. So I think that's part of this discussion. However, I do think there are some trust issues. And again, I'm saying this from a fan perspective with this bullpen. I think you're looking at it right now. And again, this changes, it seems like, every couple of weeks, but you're looking at it right now. The only reliever I really trust at this moment is AJ Minter. And that's crazy because he was probably one of the relievers you trusted the least at the beginning of the season. That's why I say things are always fluctuating with the bullpen, but he has an expected ERA of 3.17. He has a K rate of 32.6%. He's given up just 3 earned runs in his last 15 appearances. 2 of those were inherited runners given up on Sunday. So AJ Minter is the guy I trust the most right now. I still trust Marcell Iglesias. I know a lot of you probably don't agree with that, but I still trust him for the most part. It's just when he's been bad this year, he's been really bad. He's given up runs in 6 of his 23 outings this year. So again, it's still a lot of scoreless appearances, but in 4 of those, he's given up double-digit runs. And he's given up 3, he's given up at least 1 home run in 3 of those 4 such appearances. So again, on the most part, he's been really good. It's just when he hasn't, he's given up multiple runs. Obviously, if you're going to blow a game, you don't want to then let it turn into a loss. And I feel like that's happened a couple of times with Iglesias this year. But for the most part, a 30.1% strikeout rate, doesn't walk a ton of batters. I still trust him for the most part. Jesse Chavez, I put in the trust tree right now. 3.17 expected ERA, a 30.8% K rate. I'm not sure how he does it sometimes, but he gets it done. Would I feel comfortable in a close game in the playoffs putting Jesse Chavez out there? I can't say that for sure, but so far this season, he's got it done, and definitely the Braves are looking for him to get healthy and come back. But those are the 3 guys that I think I trust the most, that I have the most confidence in when they come in. It's always going to be nervous for Iglesias because it's the 9th inning. It's the last inning. It's always going to be, nerve-wracking when a closer comes into a game. Like I said, there's not many Riveras or Edwin Diaz's of the world. You're going to feel a little bit nervous, but Those are the three guys I trust the most. Now, fringe trust guys, and there's a lot of those for the Braves. Dylan Lee, particularly against lefties, I have a lot of trust in. Nick Anderson is losing my trust. He's given up 1 run in 4 of his last 9 outings in June. He's given up at least 1 hit in all but 1 outing in June. And in the 1 outing, he didn't give up a hit. He walked a batter. He's given up 12 hits and 4 walks in 8 2/3 innings in June. He's starting to lose my trust a little bit, especially in that 7th, 8th inning setup role where he's been. Still a 3.66 expected ERA, 27.3% strikeout rate, and 6.3% walk rate. Those are all very solid numbers. Kirby Yates, he's getting there. I tweeted this out even before Monday night's game where he got the save opportunity. I thought he had one of the better weekends for the Braves pitchers in Cincinnati. You look at his 31.7% K rate on the year. That's exactly what you want. But a 4.54 expected ERA and a 13.8% walk rate. He's been hit pretty hard too, but if he can start to command that fastball up and that splitter down, we can see him have the success like he's had over the past month now. And you look at that stretch, he's been really good. A 0.94 whip in June, a 1.07 whip after April, just 2 walks in 10 2/3 innings in June so far. And on Monday night, threw a really beautiful 3-2 splitter to Gallo for the strikeout. Also got Buxton with a splitter below the zone. So he is starting to come on. If he limits those walks, that strikeout rate, it's still there. He's still getting a ton of swings and misses. So Yates is somebody who is on the upward trend. Michael Tonkin, still a guy that I somewhat trust. 3.85 expected ERA, a 6.4 walk rate, but just a 21.4% strikeout rate, which is why I wouldn't really trust him in a big moment. But to bridge that gap, he's pitched some big innings for the Braves this year. Joe Jimenez, he's given up just 1 earned run in 7 June outings, a 3.91 expected ERA on the year, 27.7% strikeout rate is solid. He's been hit extremely hard, though. You saw that in the game on Sunday. He gave up those 2 earned runs, inherited runners when A.J. Minter left. He got up 0-2 on McLean and then just hung a slider that he drilled into the left center field gap. It's just when he's made mistakes and he's left pitches out over the plate, he has gotten absolutely destroyed this year. But the strikeout rate is there. That velocity is coming back. He's looked better over the last month or so, but still, I don't fully trust him yet. And then Colin McHugh, 7 of 9 appearances in June have been scoreless. Had the big blow up in Cincinnati, gave up 4 earned runs. His strikeout rate's down to 15.1% this year, which is really worrisome to me. A 4.83 expected ERA is worrisome as well. Colin McHugh, maybe out of all these relievers, is the one that worries me the most. And he's been better in June, again, outside of really that blow up in Cincinnati. But you look at the analytics for him and the stuff, and that strikeout rate being down is just highly concerning, especially when you're talking about guys who you really trust when they come out. You want really somebody. When I'm looking at a bullpen guy that I really trust, I'm looking at that strikeout rate. I'm looking at that walk rate. I want a strikeout rate, 28, 30%. You get over 30%, that's great. But somewhere around that range, and then a walk rate, under 8% or lower, that's really what I'm looking for when I'm looking at somebody that I can trust, somebody that doesn't walk a lot, somebody that strikes out a lot. That's your obvious statement of the day. And the Braves have 2 of those guys right now, or really 3 in Chavez. They have Minter, Iggy, and Chavez. Those are your guys. Strikeout rate above 30%, walk rate under 8%. If Yates gets the walks down, he could join that group. I still think they need to find one other guy like that to be a dominant setup guy. Again, you're talking playoffs right now. I trust Minter. I still trust Iglesias. I don't know that I fully trust Jesse Chavez in that situation. Kirby Yates is getting there, but they're still missing one more piece. I think you got to find one more guy at the deadline, at least, that you really trust. Now, could that be AJ Smith-Shawver? Possibly. I think he certainly has the strikeout stuff. Does he have the command? Does he, have it mentally to be able to get those outs in big moments as a setup guy? And Ben Heller. I think those are 2 guys we just don't have enough to go on right now. Ben Heller early on has shown some really good strikeout stuff, but, again, doesn't have a great track record at the big league level, at least recently. So we need to see more from him, but certainly has some big strikeout stuff. If he can command it and limit the walks, which he struggled with in Cincinnati. But all in all, I went through that list. I didn't say there's one person on there that I just flat out do not trust. Now, there's a level of trust I have with those guys, and there's not many in there that I just feel completely comfortable with. If you want me to be truthful, the only one I just really feel confident with at the moment is AJ Minter. But I do still feel pretty good with these guys when they come out for the most part. But I still think they need to go out and find one more dominant setup type guy. Like I said, somebody 30% strikeout rate, 8% or less walk rate. That's really what you need, especially when it comes to the postseason. You need those dominant guys at the back end. You go back to that 2021 playoff run where you had Matzik, you had Minter, you had Luke Jackson, you had Will Smith. But really for me, it was Matzik, Minter, and Jackson who had that big strikeout stuff in those middle innings that they could go up against the heart of an order, and you really felt comfortable with them getting a big strikeout, not walking a lot of batters. I think the Braves need, again, I think you have Minter, I think you have Iglesias, maybe Yates could be one of those, maybe AJ Smith-Shawver if he gets moved to the bullpen. I still think at the trade deadline, they got to go out and find one more big arm for that bullpen, at least, maybe two, to really feel more comfortable and trustworthy in this bullpen. But still, it's a top 10 bullpen. There's nobody coming out of there that I just completely feel terrible about. But again, I would like at least one or two more guys that I feel more comfortable about whenever they do come out of that bullpen, as much as a fan can feel comfortable when those bullpen doors open. All right, next, got some news on Max Fried, who continues to make progress towards his return, and I'll set you up for that great pitching matchup on Tuesday night between Bryce Elder and Joe Ryan. We'll discuss that here next. Max Fried threw another bullpen session on a Monday as he continues to get geared up. Next, we'll probably see him face live hitters, and then maybe we'll see him begin a rehab start here in the next couple of weeks. That would be ideal as we look to try to get him back around the All-Star break, probably right after. That's going to be big for the starting rotation. Again, that's your second obvious statement of the day, but the Braves need him. I think the starting rotation has held together well enough, through the struggles of Spencer Strider, through the ups and downs of Charlie Morton. Bryce Elder's remained solid all year. You've gotten some big starts from Jared Schuster. You got a couple in there from AJ Smith-Shawver and others as well. Maybe we see Michael Soroka come back up this week and get an opportunity, but really need Max Fried to come back, be that top of the rotation guy. Now that Spencer Strider's got things figured out, I think that just settles things down so much more. And it's crazy to think the Braves have 51 wins already, and they've been without Max Fried. They've been without Kyle Wright. Again, just shows you the depth of this team. It's been the offense picking things up here lately, but down the stretch and in the postseason, they're going to have Max Fried. I said coming into the year, the two biggest keys for the Braves winning the World Series this year were having Max Fried and Spencer Strider be healthy at the right time and being those top of the rotation guys. That's the key for me with the Braves winning the World Series. They have the offense to get it done. Just talked about maybe adding one arm or two to the bullpen to really feeling comfortable there. But I think a lot of their success in the postseason and winning World Series hinges on having a healthy and effective Max Fried and Spencer Strider. Also, Bryce Elder helps in that as well, as he's been great all season. He goes up against Joe Ryan, both guys with an ERA under 3. Ryan coming off a complete game shutout of the Red Sox. He had given up 6 earned in his start before that, though, against the Tigers. He's had a couple of rough outings here over the last month, but still, complete game shutout his last time out. So he's got to be feeling pretty good coming off that one. He doesn't walk anybody, and he gets a lot of chases. That makes me a little bit nervous for this Braves lineup, but whip percentage between 22 and 30% on all 4 of his pitches. So that's really good as well. So good matchup, or not a tough matchup for the Braves on Tuesday night, but hopefully Bryce Elder continues his good ways. His last 2 starts, I had a couple of rough ones there in early June, but he's really turned things around his last 2 starts, 13 innings, just 7 hits and 2 walks, only 1 earned run given up, and that was on a solo home run and 10 strikeouts. So really looking forward to Bryce Elder. I mentioned it after his last couple starts. I thought it was some of his best outings of the year, even in those games where he gave up a couple of home runs, made a couple of mistakes with that slider. I still thought the stuff was really good. So excited to see this pitching matchup on Tuesday. Hopefully the Braves can get the win and go ahead and wrap up a series against another division leading team. Braves play the Twins again on Tuesday night at 7:20 p.m. Eastern. It's AL Cy Young candidate Joe Ryan against Bryce Elder. Catch every pitch of the Braves' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of each and every day. Make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Follow me at Shortstop Ball. Also, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.